The Whatcom County Council is the legislative branch of Whatcom County government. Our council is comprised of 7 members. One member is elected from each of the 5 county council districts, and 2 members are elected as the county-wide at-large representatives. This is a special year for us because it is our first election with our new districts that we voted into effect in 2016. And today, as we've mentioned, we have our 3rd district candidates, Rebecca and Tyler, with us. The 3rd district, just so you know, is geographically the largest, I believe, ranging from the Canadian border to the small towns east of Mount Baker. It includes towns and communities such as Welcome, Acme, Maple Falls, Chuckanut Drive, and Lake Whatcom. And we also have Mary Kay and Barry running for the at-large position. And as you heard at our October lunch, we will have our 1st and 2nd district races here to do the same kind of program. So all county council positions are nonpartisan. The term of office for each position is 4 years. The county council exercises its legislative power by adoption and enactment of ordinances and resolutions, and responsibilities range from adopting plans for development of the county, creating land use rules, enacting public safety laws, levying taxes, appropriating revenue, adopting the county budget, and setting speed limits, no shooting zones, and animal control regulations. Our format today is simple. Each candidate will have 1.5 minutes for an opening statement. I will then go through some questions. Each candidate will have 90 seconds to respond to each question. We do have a timekeeper here today, Tanya. She will signal the candidates when they have about 15 seconds left in their responses. A little red stop sign will be held up when their 90 seconds are up, and a bell will ring when we're about to get the hook. So. And as always, we will have time for questions from all of our audience members. And rather than closing statements today, I will finish us up with a final question. So with that, let's begin with opening statements from our District 3 candidates. In alphabetical order, let's hear first from Rebecca Boonstra.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. It's good to be back in one of my former neighborhoods. I used to live right up the road in the apartments. That's actually where my son was born, so it's nice to be back here. I'm Rebecca Boonstra. I'm running for Whatcom County Council to represent the 3rd District. Since I landed in Whatcom County 18 years ago, I've been getting involved in projects that serve to develop the community in positive ways. I supported the change of 3 districts to 5 districts in Whatcom County because I felt like the 3-district system was sort of kind of pie wedges that radiated out of the center of Bellingham out into the county and kind of ensured that we were going to have leadership only from Bellingham in the urban areas. I supported the 5-district change because that allows communities to have authentic leadership. And living and working out in Maple Falls, I feel like that puts me in a good position to provide that type of leadership for District 3. I love to volunteer. I volunteer at the East Whatcom Community Council, providing leadership and oversight for the East Whatcom Regional Resource Center. And, I just want all people in Whatcom County to have equal access to what they need so that we can all be successful residents here in Whatcom County.
Thank you, Rebecca. And Tyler Byrd.
Hello, my name is Tyler Byrd, and I'm running for Whatcom County Council in District 3 as well. Thank you for having me. I'm going to start off by telling you I'm not a politician. In my generation, that's something that I think, have come to kind of not like so much. It's someone that tells you one thing and then lies to your face essentially and turns around and does something entirely different. What I am is I'm a father and I'm a small business owner. I started kindergarten here at Happy Valley and I graduated from Ferndale High School. My family's lived all over this community, from Ferndale to Linden to Everson to Lake Samish, Geneva, and Bellingham. This is my home. This is why I'm running. It's because I love this place and I want my kids and my family to grow up here. There's a second reason I'm running, though, today, and I want to talk to you about that, and it's the reason that I'm running as an independent. I'm running as an independent and running for this office because I am fed up with politics in general. I hate the fact that we can no longer have conversations, that people are taking sides and taking labels, whether they're the red team or the blue team, a Republican or a Democrat, that you fall into a category that doesn't necessarily represent you, that you might agree on one issue, but it's likely that you don't agree on every issue. And yet we're beholden to these labels and these titles, and we're expected to vote for people based on these titles and these labels. Instead, I think we should be selecting leaders based off qualifications, experience, and how they make decisions, and not based off labels. We should be talking and listening to each other and building relationships, and that's what I'd like to bring to the Whatcom County Council.
Thank you, Tyler. So moving on to our at-large candidates, also in alphabetical order. Let's start with Barry Buchanan.
Thanks to the City Club for throwing this event today, and thanks to everybody for coming out. I really appreciate it. My name is Barry Buchanan. I am running for re-election to the Whatcom County Council. I'm a fourth-generation Whatcom County native and a U.S. Navy veteran. My family came here in the late 1800s. They were driven to community service. And I had a great uncle that was a Whatcom County commissioner back in the 60s. I have a cousin in the U.S. Congress. And I followed that same mold, and I served as a president of my neighborhood association. I served on the Bellingham City Council and now on the Whatcom County Council. And my wife and I, who've been married for 44 years, we founded the Bellingham High School Alumni Band back in the 90s, and it was a very, very successful, we were in the marching band. We had 320 people on our first parade in the ski to see. It was just really super exciting. And I just want to keep that tradition alive of community service, because to me, local policy making is so rewarding, because you can see your work. You run into people at the store and you can talk about what's important to them. So it's a continuous dialogue with your community when you can be right here in the community while you serve. So I would really appreciate your support this November, and thanks again for having us here.
Thank you, Barry. And last but not least, Mary Kay.
Hi, I'm Mary Kay. I am a 30-year resident of Whatcom County, and I've raised my children here and launched them into the world successfully. And the bulk of my career I've spent in bank management and in real estate. And during that time, I was a champion for affordable housing, and as such, I was certified as a trainer for first-time homebuyers through the Washington State Housing Finance Commission. I also was the lender who piloted the first 12 loans through the Colson Community Land Trust, great organization. And the reason I did that is because I believe home ownership is key to building strong communities, and I still believe that to this day. In my past, I've served on the board of City Club, this very organization, a lot of fun there. I was also a founding board member of Communities and Schools, and I was appointed to the Whatcom County Ethics Commission by Pete Kremen, and later reappointed by County Executive Jack Louse. Currently, I sit on the Board of Law Advocates, which advocates for legal assistance to those in need. I also serve on the Chamber. I serve on the Nursing Advisory Committee for the Community College. And I also help coordinate the Blossom Time Parade, which is that big event in the weekend. A lot of work, but it's a lot of fun. And last year, I was honored to be the president of the Whatcom County Association of Realtors and advocate again for homeownership and affordable housing. And it's that involvement that really inspired me to run for office, because I thought, perhaps I can have an even greater impact, positive impact on my community in terms of housing of our citizens. So thanks for having us here. And if you want more information, check out my website or my Facebook page, Families for Mary Kay.
Wonderful. We are very, very lucky to have candidates of your caliber running for office in this community. So thank you to each of you for doing that. So a local hero of mine once told me that when national forces and politics seem to go haywire and it looks as though it's impossible to make a difference, the best strategy is to go local. We know that locally we have a few very important conversations in process. Before we get into some of the hot topics that we're all thinking about, let me start off with this. You all have been campaigning for a number of months now. What are the issues in your district? What are your constituents talking to you about? What are people caring about? So is there anybody who's really excited to start us off?
Sure, why not?
Thanks, Tyler.
Absolutely. knocking on doors and getting out there to as many events as I think we all have, I think there's a couple of issues, and I think we all know what those issues are right now. Hearst is one of the big ones: water quality, water quantity. Do I have access to water on my property? Can I build a home? What happens to my retirement account? Another one that's popped up that's a little bit, it's just as common, I would say, is roundabouts. It's a very divisive issue, roundabouts, let me tell you. And Cherry Point is obviously the third one. And I think these are all very valid and important issues. I think some of these issues as candidates we're going to be dealing with, and others we won't be dealing with. And that's why I think I'll go back and I'll say it's important that as candidates and as voters, we elect people based on how they make decisions and based on their experience and based on their qualifications, and not necessarily the issues today. Because the issues today will probably be gone by the time we're out of office. And we need to know how those people are going to work so that when new issues come up, we know that they'll vote in our favor.
Perfect. Rebecca, do you want to go next?
Sure, thanks, Heather. You know, in District 3 and in East Whatcom County in particular, one of the, we talked about it earlier today, is food access. I went from one food desert this morning to another food desert just now. And access to grocery stores is really, really important. In the Mount Baker School District, in the Kendall Elementary School, 70% of children apply for free or reduced price lunch. And the amount of families that qualify for SNAP benefits is an incredible number. We need to have access to grocery stores. We need to have access to farmers markets. District 3 is all unincorporated, so there's no cities in District 3. And all of the grocery stores in District 3 are very, very small community markets or convenience stores. We need to get fed in District 3. That's a big thing that needs to happen.
Thank you, Mary Kay. Thank you, Rebecca.
So a big part of when I go out and talk to people is people complain about the cost of housing, whether it's rents escalating or their houses. I mean, how many of you could afford the house you live in today? That's a scary thought. And part of that escalation is, you know, what do we do about the housing? You know, where can my kids even afford to come back here and live and be near family? And that dovetails into our economy and are we attractive to businesses? I was talking with an advisor at the Small Business Development Center through Western, and I said, so what is it? What is it about Whatcom County? Are we attractive to businesses? What's going on? And he said, we need to look at our permitting process as far as how businesses develop. Can they expand? What are the hoops they have to go through? Not necessarily that they can't do it, but what is the time involved for them to do so? And I said, it's really interesting. We need to have some more conversations and see what that's about. Because we want to be welcoming and have those good wage jobs so they can afford to buy the house, so they can settle here, and we can have family actually live next to each other versus my kids have left. They couldn't afford to stay here and got better opportunities elsewhere. I'm hoping that we can create those opportunities and be able to house them at the same time.
Thank you, Mary Kay. Barry?
Well, being as I'm an at-large candidate, I hear a variety of issues throughout the county, anywhere from the jail to the Hearst decision to the Cherry Point issues. But I think the one that I've heard the most about is the emergency we have in our county and in Bellingham of homelessness. And I think this is something that we're trying to get our arms around, but we just kind of haven't quite figured it out. So I'm pleased to say that last night I brought forward the intent to have a resolution in 2 weeks to form a very fast-moving, rapid response work group to deal with this issue countywide and to start looking at where we can put low-barrier shelters and other programs that we might be able to come up with to solve this crisis, because it is absolutely a crisis that we have to deal with. So you're going to hear more about that. I hope you can support that through any way you can. It's just so important to our community that we start to solve this issue.
Thank you, Barry. You guys have been out talking to a lot of people. variety of issues. So getting into some of the issues, let's start off with the easy stuff. How about the Hearst decision? In October 2016, the Washington State Supreme Court decision changed how counties decide to approve or deny building permits that use wells for a water source. What role do you believe county council should have in developing and applying water rights? Let's change up who starts. So Barry, do you want to kick us off on this one? Mm-hmm. Okay.
The Hearst decision doesn't exist just in singularity. There's 3 court decisions that intersect that make this so complicated. The Hearst decision just really basically said you have to not affect in-stream flow when you put a well in the ground. There was 2 other decisions in our state that came out, and one of which was that you have to be able to mitigate any in-stream flow disturbance that you do, but it has to be mitigated in place and in time. So that means you can't mitigate it downstream of where you're putting a well in. You have to be able to do it in the sub-basin that you're actually putting the well into. The other issue that was complicated was that you could not affect in-stream flow by one molecule, which is virtually impossible to prove or disprove. So with those 3 things intersecting, it's made it very, very complicated for the council. We're working on a lot of mitigation strategies such as water banking, maybe some of the public purveyors like the PUD number 1, some of the county water districts being able to expand in their service area to be able to serve the customers that they have in their service area. So it's a very complicated issue. I think the council can solve it. We hope that the state legislature will give us some relief to be able to deal with all 3 of those issues at once. Thank you.
Mary Kay?
So I've been working a lot on the Hearst issue over the years, especially with a lot of my clients. And I've looked at adjudication, water banking, catchment systems, et cetera. The issue with water banking is it relies on volunteers to volunteer their water right to be purchased by someone who's seeking that water right. So it's a volunteer basis. And if there's not enough volunteers, then you get a little bit of market distortion because you don't have enough supply, and then that can jack up the price, and then it gets expensive for the landowner. And then what happens is you've got that change of paper, you've got the right and the water, but then nothing happens to the in-stream flows. There's zero happening. So I think there's probably going to have to be some type of mitigation as far as the stream or the streams and the river is concerned. Hopefully the state will pass that. I'm hopeful. It'll have a line item of $10 million for habitat restoration for in-stream flows, which is great. I'm hopeful we can come together on that. If not, it'll be incumbent upon the county to look at some sort of mitigation thing, whether we utilize a floodplains by design element in partnership. It's a public-private partnership with the Department of Ecology. There's some options that we could take a look at there, diverting into the river, et cetera. But I'm running out of time, so watch my Facebook page. I'm doing some videos on this very issue.
Thank you, Mary Kay. Rebecca?
Thanks. So water is a tough issue out here in Whatcom County, and I've been receiving a lot of support and a lot of training. I've had a lot of good conversations with really, really smart people who've been willing to share their time with me. I think as a county council member, I think research and learning is so important. I think one of the interesting things about running for county council and being on a county council is you get to have all these different jobs that you didn't think you'd ever be. I never thought I would grow up to be a hydrologist, but I'm getting an opportunity to learn a lot about water. When I got into county politics or local politics at all, it was in my own water district of Water District 13 in Peaceful Valley. And so I've been studying water use and water law throughout the county for many, many years. Our current system for water is broken, and it really needs an update. And when we make those changes, we need to make sure that we put in place a process that is fair. We need a process that makes sense to people, a process that honors our treaty rights, that honors our property rights, that keeps the water in the stream for the salmon. I spent a couple of days at the Baker to Bay Symposium learning about the importance of water in the county from a municipal and habitat and recreation areas, and I'm going to keep learning.
Thank you, Rebecca.
Thank you
Tyler?
for the question. So I don't think that we can rely on legislative fixes from Olympia. I think that that's a bad decision because we don't know how long that can take. And we have a lot of families that are in our community right now today that very much need a fix to this problem. As a county council member, I think that we have to begin looking immediately at what our alternatives might be, what other solutions that we can come up with. Because if the legislative fix does not come through, we have to have a backup plan for these families. And here's the other thing. We need a backup plan that doesn't just solve it for today. We need a backup plan that solves this for the next 50, 60, 70, 80, or 100 years. Because the population in our community is going to continue to grow. We're going to continue to have kids. We're going to continue to want to have our kids live in this community with us. We have to have a place for those people. If we want immigration, those people need homes to live in. They'll need water for those homes. We need a long-term fix for this problem. Will we find a perfect solution? Absolutely not. Are we going to find a solution that everyone's happy with? Most definitely not going to happen. But we can find a solution. If you talk to scientists that are working on water right now and global warming, what they're going to tell you is that we're going to continue to see more melting in the winter or in the spring and more flooding. We're going to see more droughts coming through the summer and a much more significant water problem moving forward. We need something that deals with this in the long term, and it's going to have to come to the county council and other leaders in our community to put those solutions forward.
Great, thank you. So speaking of water, let's move to another issue that could potentially affect the Salish Sea. Just last night, the County Council voted to extend the moratorium on development at Cherry Point. Do you support the Cherry Point moratorium, and why or why not? So Mary Kay, let's start with you this time.
So the moratorium, as far as the moratorium, how it was enacted, I have a concern about how the original moratorium was enacted, is that it was done in August of 16 and was proposed. It came out without conversation with the affected businesses. I understand that there's concerns as far as health and safety, and I get that. However, wouldn't it be prudent to talk to the individual businesses prior to the moratorium and say, is there something we can do? What kind of dialogue can we have together? Can we create a solution to this? If we're not willing to talk to the businesses involved that are providing, family wage jobs and all that stuff, then how is that, what kind of message are we sending to that business and any other business that looks at our community as potential place to locate their place of operation? So I look towards, can we at least have that dialogue, have that conversation, and see if there's another alternative versus a black or white, yes or no, up, down. There's oftentimes there's shades of gray in there, and we can talk about that and find solutions.
Barry?
I obviously support the moratorium. I voted for it last night, as I have every time that it's come up. The whole purpose of an emergency moratorium is to stop permits from coming in and getting vested while you're trying to solve the problem. That's why we enacted it so quickly. Now, we did go out to the industries and we invited them to participate in the process as we were crafting the next stage, which was the first interim ordinance. And they did not want to be involved in the discussion. It was very surprising to me, but so be it. And we really are interested in helping to preserve those jobs out at Cherry Point. Once we start exporting crude oil out of our county, we are exporting jobs out of our county. If you Google refinery to terminal, and there is numerous articles of this going on throughout the world and what happened to those jobs and what happened to those communities when that happened, because they go down from a 400 to 800 to 1,000 person employment force in a refinery down to 15, 20 people that are in a terminal that just throw a valve and fill up a ship. So we really have in mind those jobs, and this notion that this is a job killer is just false. We're very interested, obviously, in the public health and safety aspect. That's the primary reason that we did it, and the transportation impacts that go along with it.
Thank you, Barry. Let's start with you, Tyler.
All right. I don't support it, and here's why. The way I was raised was pretty simple. If you borrow someone's car, you return it after you clean it out and you fill it up with gas. You return it in better condition than what you received it. And I think the same thing applies for us in our community and our planet. I want to take what I have inherited from my family and my grandparents, and I want to give that to my kids in a better condition in which they have received it. And I think that by closing down or limiting the development or expansion of a world-class facility, a facility that we know is doing an incredible job at refining fuels right now, we're not doing that. What we're looking at right now is, what's the alternative? I would love to see green energy. It would be fantastic if every home in our community was powered by only green energy. Unfortunately, that's not in our foreseeable future. It's not going to be a light switch that we can turn on and off in which everything will be green overnight. We'll have to continue to use refined fuels. And what better place to do it than in our community, where it supports fantastic paying jobs and where we can watch it and monitor it to make sure it's being done in a manner that we agree with, in a world-class manner, in a manner where we can protect the environment and know that it's not being spilled or dumped or polluting other communities. We need to be responsible owners. We need to be passing on a better community. And personally, I want to oversee that and make sure that we're doing it.
Pinky Vargas said I could write notes down and read from my notes, so I am. I do support the moratorium, Heather. I think that I completely agree with Barry Buchanan. I am worried that if we start exporting those unrefined fossil fuels, then our jobs are going to go away. I think that the jobs in industry at Cherry Point are very, very important. I love it when I get on a plane in SeaTac and know that the fueling that jet to fly me to see my mom and dad was made right here in Whatcom County. I think that that's fantastic. I'm eager to see the advances in safety and efficiency that are going to happen at Cherry Point. I'm sure that those industries are not using the same processes that they were using when they opened their doors. They're becoming more safer, they're becoming more efficient, and I'm eager to see that industry develop. I think that the jobs at Cherry Point are family wage jobs. I think they're important jobs. I think that we need a variety of employment opportunities in Whatcom County. Not everyone's going to grow up and want to run for county council. Some people are going to want to work out at Cherry Point.
Thank you. Okay, and on to another favorite topic for county leadership. How about the jail? So, County Council voted this year to put a jail tax on the ballot this November. Tell us whether you think we need a new jail and what your thoughts and ideas are about solutions for our community. So I think, Rebecca, you're the only one who hasn't gotten to start first.
Okay. The jail is such a hot topic. There's a lot of people thinking on one side and on the other side. I, for one, I know why we need jails in our community. I have experienced firsthand the terrible, terrible things that human beings are capable of doing. And we need a criminal justice system that is ready to take action and care for those people. In addition to the jail, we really need criminal justice reform. And this topic is far too complex and important to just vote yes on the ballot in November. So I will be voting no on my ballot. I think that we need to take time as a community and discuss ways to address the amount of people who are in our jail. Right now, 60% of the people in jail are waiting for trial, which means that they're simply defendants, and they haven't been convicted yet. I would like to see an evidence-based risk assessment program developed here in Whatcom County. I think we need to go that way. Instead of building a jail that's big enough to house them all, I think we need to look at getting some more of our inmates out of jail.
Thank you. Tyler?
You all have good questions. All right, here's what I support. I support the fact that this has gone to you as voters to decide. You're all grown up, you're all adults, you're all knowledgeable on the issue, and you can decide for yourself if you want to support this. This is a major tax increase. There's a lot of information out there, and that's available to you. For us, as council members or potential council members, I don't think that's up to us. I think it's up to you to decide. It's your community, and you need to make that decision. There's pros and cons to both sides, and it doesn't matter whether you're a Republican or a Democrat. Both parties right now are incredibly divided over this, and I think it goes back to labels cannot encompass all of us. It's up to all of us to inform ourselves on this process, to decide for ourselves what we want to see, and to then vote in November and decide what the community is going to end up with.
Thank you, Tyler. Mary Kay, do you want to start off?
Sure. And I want to echo that sentiment. I mean, the process, it's been a long process, and we are in dire need of change. I've toured that jail, and it is awful. It's just awful. And, you know, the safety of the inmates as well as the staff that work there is of paramount concern. We need to do something. I'm glad that the city councils in the county voted for it, as well as the county council, to put it on the ballot, and it is a big deal, and it's a lot of money involved. I've looked at the numbers. You know, I'm torn one way or another myself on the issue itself, but I think it's ultimately up to us, and who do we want to be? How do we want to be responsible for this? And how do we move forward? It's, you know, I don't know if we'll ever find a perfect solution. I don't know one ever exists, any kind of perfection. It's kind of like, you know, when's the perfect time to have kids? Never. So, you know, where's the perfect jail solution? I don't think there is a perfect jail solution. So I think we need to look at the right solution for our community, and we're going to know. We're going to know in November, and we'll have to deal with that consequence, the consequence of that vote, regardless of the outcome. So,
Thank you.
The first part of your question is, yes, we do need a new jail. I agree with anybody's statement that says that place is really bad. But I did vote against putting it on the ballot. The reason I voted that way is I felt that the cart was ahead of the horse. What I mean by that is that we have convened an Incarceration Prevention and Reduction Task Force who has contracted with Vera Institute, who is just coming up with some fantastic ideas for programs that are going to keep people out of jail. None of this data has been folded into the decision-making process of how big this jail should be. I believe it's too big. I believe the proposal is too big. It's too expensive. It's probably in the wrong place. I think it needs to be looked at again, almost in a reset mode if this measure does not pass. But we certainly need a new facility, and we need to work together as a community to come up with a way to do that to everyone's, well, most people's likings. I am proud that we put together a group with the city council and other entities throughout the county to look at the equity of the financing. I think that's one thing that we really did a good job of just focusing in on what is equitable between the different jurisdictions, and there was a lot of agreement that came out of that. But we just weren't able to deal with the whole size and how do we incorporate this data that we're getting now from the task force and the Vera Institute. So I just think it's a wrong move.
Thank you. I think I have one more question, and then we'll open it up to all of you, so be thinking about your questions too. So let's move away from issues for a minute and talk about you as individuals. I'm curious about why now? What motivated you to put your name in the hat to run or to run again for office now? Any eager volunteers? Great. Thank you, Barry.
Well, I think, part of my opening statement kind of reflected on that, and that is just the desire for public service. And as the more I've gotten into it and the more I've done, the more I like it and the more I feel that there is to be done. So I think, there's a lot of issues that need a lot of hard work and a lot of concentration. And I think, those are the issues that we touched on today. The Hearst decision is going to be a big, long long decision before we can get that figured out. So I think sense of community, I'm feel so blessed to be able to live here. I lived in California for 17 years after we left here when I went in the Navy. And, we saw all strange kinds of developments that took place, like in San Jose. They just cleared almond orchards and stuff and there was no sense of planning. So I think, after seeing those things and being around the world in third world countries while I was in the Navy, you really get an appreciation for what you can do for your community and how your community can rise up. This community is so awesome in its engagement in the political process and in issues that it makes our job so much easier sometimes harder, but you know how that goes. But the engagement is inspiring, and I think that's what really it tops it off for me, is being inspired by you all and everyone out in our community.
Thank you, Barry.
So I've touched on this in my opening remarks, but in my involvement with the Realtors Association, the local Realtors Association, which primarily advocates for home ownership and affordable housing issues, I was very involved in testifying to both city and county councils regarding these planning issues, affordable housing, et cetera. And the more I testified, and you only get 3 minutes, and that's it, the more I thought, maybe I could expand my contribution, because I've always believed in community service. I've done that for all my adult life. I've been involved in community service, and I thought, maybe I could have a greater positive impact if I got involved in local politics. And so I've never run before. This is my first time out. So and someone asked me, well, do you have any other designs, going to Congress or something? It's like, no, I'm happy right here. I'm just going to stay right here, and this is it. I love where I live, and I love serving the people, and I participate in, I didn't even list half the nonprofits I've been involved in, but I think it's a great community, and I wish I could, I want to make this place a great place where my children maybe want to come back. Hopefully nothing with mom and dad, but that my children want to come back here, and that they can afford to live here, they can afford to buy a home, and to have my family nearby would be such a blessing, such a blessing.
Thank you, Mary Kay. Rebecca?
So why now? Why now of all times to just throw your hat in and run for county council? I think why now? I wanted to run like 15 years ago, but I didn't think I was ready. So during that time, I got involved with the local block watch group, Kendall Watch, and they've just celebrated their 14th year. I was offered a job at the Chamber of Commerce, and I thought that might help. I could learn about business and tourism, so I did that. I was hired as the operations manager for Whatcom County Cemetery District 3, so that gives me experience working for a county government. I was asked if I would run for the Columbia Valley Parks and Rec District Board of Commissioners last year. And I won that. I was unopposed in a district that was being formed on the same ballot. So while that felt really, really good and gives me more experience, it wasn't as tough as this one is. I was offered a seat on the Opportunity Council Board of Directors, and I thought, hey, that'll give me an opportunity to work outside of just East Whatcom County. As a matter of fact, it gives me an opportunity to work outside of Whatcom County and form relationships in San Juan and Island counties as well. So that's why now.
And Tyler?
I've touched on this a little bit, and I'd like to elaborate on it because I think it's important. I have friends on Facebook that we've grown up for years together, and they're no longer friends because they don't have the same labels, because what they share on Facebook creates a divide amongst them. I have family members that don't talk to each other anymore. There's so many people that I know that have become divided and partisan about issues. And there's a saying that goes around, it's, if you don't vote, you can't complain. Well, let me tell you, I have voted, I have volunteered, I've gotten involved in the community, I've done everything I possibly can, and it seems to continue to get worse. So what else could I do? I decided that this was the best thing that I could do. I could come forward and I could show people what I think it means to be a leader. I could stand up and I could show my children what it means to be a leader and what I want them to learn how to grow up and to respect, the kind of humans and adults that I want them to become. I want them to stop seeing the other thing. Instead of ripping candidates down and tearing people apart during elections, isn't it time we start building people up? Isn't it time we start electing people on their accomplishments, on who they are, on the type of individuals we want to lead us? I think that's what we need to be looking for. That's what I want to show my kids and my grandkids. I think it's important. We need to turn the paradigm, and it starts here. It starts locally with all of us.
Thank you to each of you. So now I think we have a couple of people who are going to help us with the audience questions. I believe Patricia and Bill may have some roving microphones. Are we ready back there? Great.
Yeah. Thank you for hosting this City Club. I know that Barry and Rebecca are aligned with the Democratic Party in Whatcom County, so I'm curious about this notion of nonpartisanship on the behalf of Mary Kay and Tyler. And so my question to Mary Kay and Tyler is yes or no, have you given money to or received money from the Republican Party at any level in the last several years? And if so, how can you claim you are nonpartisan?
Thanks. I think that's a great question, and it's something that's come up quite a few times. What I would tell you is that I have never received money from the Republican Party, and I have not received their endorsement either. I specifically went to their meeting, and I asked them to not give me money and to not endorse me, because it should not be about partisanship. It should not be about my label. Have I given money in the past to organizations? All over our community, tons and tons of organizations, everything from the Boys and Girls Club to donations to every nonprofit I could possibly think of across. And it's for things from tuitions to scholarships to homelessness to everything that I could possibly think of that I would help create a better community for us. I think that this should be nonpartisan, just like us as voters decided it to be. We voted on it back in the 90s. We said we want our local races to be nonpartisan. So why do we keep allowing candidates to take labels? I don't want anyone's label. I attended the endorsement meeting there too. Did I ask for endorsement or money from them? No, I didn't. I've gone to both because I need voters from both sides. I need people from every stakeholder group to have a conversation and to come together to create the kind of change that I would like to see created in our community. That doesn't mean that I need the label to do that.
And for myself, no, I've not received any financial support or endorsement from either party, and I'm just fine with that. In fact, I'm glad this is a nonpartisan race, and quite frankly, I'm tired. I don't know about you, but I'm tired of all the rancor and all the arguments. It's just, can't we just focus on what's good for right now? This, I don't like the labeling, the identity politics. I'm done with it. I'm done with it. As far as, in the past, I support a ton of organizations. I really don't care what their political leanings are. It's the mission that I support, not the person. I recently had a photo, it's on my Facebook page, of women across that stood with me as far as a promotional thing, and they come from all walks of life. And frankly, I don't know all their political leanings. Some I do, but most I don't. And I don't really care, quite frankly. It's, do you support me and the positions and my decision-making process and what kind of skills and thoughts I will bring to the position? And if you support that, great. And if you don't support it, that's fine too. But let's focus on the community. Let's put community first, not party.
I know the question wasn't directed to Barry and Rebecca, but if you have anything you'd like to say in response, I'd like to give you the space to do so.
I never did hear an answer whether they have given money to the Republican Party, but so be it. I'm a proud Democrat. I have no qualm in saying that at all. I do believe this is a nonpartisan position, though. I think we serve all the residents of the county. I couldn't agree with everyone more on that. But we have values, and that's where my values align, is with the Democratic Party. And with everything that's going on in our country right now that quite frankly is chaotic, and it's depressing to watch the news. You have to watch the news 3 times a day just to keep up. So I have no problem identifying myself as a Democrat at all, because I'm proud to be a Democrat.
I would echo Barry's sentiments as well. I'm endorsed by the Whatcom County Democrats, and I too am proud to be a Democrat. But that said, I mean, I hear what you're saying, Tyler, but I find that the opposite is true for me. I'm running into Republicans who say, I know that I'm a Republican, but I'm going to vote for you because I like what you're doing. I've seen your work and I want to get behind and support you. So for me, it's not just about Republicans and Democrats or even about Republicans versus Democrats. It's about us getting together as members of Whatcom County and of the human race to find positive change for our community. It's about protecting our environment. It's about leaving our world better than we found it. And I find that the Democrats also echo those sentiments. I'm also endorsed by Planned Parenthood and the Riveters and several labor councils. And, you know, I share values with those folks as well. It's not just about Republicans and Democrats. It's not even about District 3 or other districts. As county council members, we're going to represent the whole county, red and blue and purple and green and the whole place.
Oh, we have one over here. Great.
I'm Becky Elmendorf, and I'd like to go back, Heather, to what you reminded us about adopting a budget, and I'd say also monitoring that budget. Mary Kay, one of the things you didn't mention when you told us your background was something that many of us in the room remember you very fondly as bringing great enthusiasm to the Whatcom Symphony as our executive director in 2007 and 2008. But it was a tough time, and when you resigned, we were not in the black. We were in the red. And so help us know what you've done that would make that we could trust your oversight of the budget.
You know what, in my introduction, you know, it's like a minute and a half I had to squeeze in, you know, the best that I could. So I had a blast being the executive director of the Whatcom Symphony. It was a privilege and an honor to serve. And that was before, it was in 2007, and then there's thing called this recession hit. And I thought, holy smokes. And as we were getting ready to launch the next season, I was in contact with all the sponsors and the advertisers and such. And the answer was, gee, you know what? I gotta watch my pennies, maybe next year. Gee, I gotta watch my pennies, maybe next year. You know, I'll take a business card size ads versus a full page. It's like, okay, the trend, the revenue was going down quickly. I mean, you remember what happened in 2008 and that September. There was a scary time. It was scary. And so I looked at that revenue dropping dramatically and looking at that line item as far as that budget is concerned, because I know how to read financial statements and balance sheets and all that stuff. And when I looked at that, and I was the only full-time employee, the only one. So that means I'm the biggest line item. So I called the president of the board and I said, you need to not have me here. I'm firing myself. Because it just, the organization is more important than my salary. And there's some other, you know, financial things that get into it. But I said, you can do this. Let me chart out a plan as far as how you can move forward. There's 5 different groups. We'll divide up the board. We'll divide up the responsibilities. I believe the organization will be stronger as a fact. It doesn't seem like that now, but it will be stronger. And you know what? I was proven right. And I am so proud of the symphony and how we have such a gem. We are so blessed to have that symphony in our community. It's wonderful. Sorry, I get
Thank you, Mary
passionate
Kay.
about that.
Many of the people in our criminal justice system in Whatcom County have mental issues, have social issues, and so on. I'd be interested in each of your thoughts on tying our vote for a new jail to reform of some of the mental health sides of our of social problems and so on in our community.
It was a little bit hard to hear. My understanding is you are really wondering about the mental health issues and the substance abuse issues in our jail and what the vision is for.
Yeah, what reform
What reform?
and tie-in between the jail, building a new jail, and any reform and tying of reform of the mental health support system in our county.
Okay. Barry, you want to start?
Yeah,
Sure.
I'll go
okay.
first.
Thank you.
I think the key to your the question about mental illness and substance abuse the key to that lies in the front end of the process and triaging people before they ever get to the jail. We have to be able to have professionals that can diagnose those kinds of issues rather than just letting them be booked into the facility and allowing corrections deputies to try to fulfill that role. It's not working very well. They're not trained. They're trained certainly in a lot of aspects of it, but not to the level of what we need in a triage facility. I think another thing is that's really clogging up our system is the cash bail system. People that can't afford to pay bail end up at the bottom of the heap. So then it becomes a crime to be poor, and it's unacceptable that we are putting people, recycling them through the system because of their inability to come up with cash bail. So criminal justice reform starts there. It also starts with looking at, as Rebecca mentioned, some of the people that haven't been through trial. They're pre-trial. It's a huge percentage of our population of our jail have not been convicted of anything. So there's electronic home monitoring programs that can serve that function, and we just need to do a better job of making sure that the people that we are incarcerating are the people that need to be incarcerated and not have all these casualties around the edges.
As far as mental health in the jail, I absolutely support, alternative programs as far as diversion programs, detention at home, et cetera. All those things need to be supported. And, the sad truth of it is from a mental health standpoint is it's legal to have mental illness and not take one's meds. We have allowed that as a society back, what is it, 70s or something, where we deinstitutionalized the mental health in our society. So it's a challenge. One of the things that we are just so incredibly lucky as a community is to have Hans Erchinger Davis as the executive director of the Lighthouse Mission. I interviewed him some time ago, and what an amazing, amazing individual. If you have not met him, meet him. He has some great programs, great ideas, and just the person who that person is he just oozes care and compassion and love for people who've had some challenges in life. And unfortunately, sometimes the homeless, there's mental health, there's substance abuse issues, et cetera, and sometimes they just need a hand. A way, a path to follow. And I think he's doing some awesome work that way. If you don't know, he just had a fundraiser at the Lighthouse Mission, the first one ever. It was packed to the gills. It was fabulously supported. And I love the work that he's doing, and we are blessed to have him in our community. I'd love to have more conversations with him.
Thanks very much for asking about mental health. I think mental health is a big deal. I agree with Barry. I'm really looking forward to seeing a triage system in place that can start to divert people whose primary needs are assistance with mental health and substance abuse. Above and beyond that, I would really love to see pathways to support and care of people who are struggling with mental illness and substance abuse issues, but without ever having to become a criminal and go to jail. I would love to see access countywide, that we weren't just having to go to Bellingham. I don't think that we have enough programs in Whatcom County, and I think it's a nationwide issue, the issue of mental health. But I would like to see Whatcom County provide some leadership and be a good example for reaching out to our neighbors and our brothers and sisters and families who need our assistance and our support and our love and our care, especially when it comes to mental health issues. That's where I want to see Whatcom County go.
Thank you, Rebecca.
Sir, I think part of your question was, should the two issues be combined into the same ballot measure? And I'm going to say no, I don't think that they should. I don't think that it gives mental health the attention that it needs to have. I think that we have to separate the two issues and deal with them as two separate issues instead of continuing to lump them together. It's not fair to those individuals, it's not fair to the other inmates, and it's not fair to the officers that are there trying to protect all of those people and putting their lives on the line. We have to start separating these things and looking at what the real problems are and dealing with them individually in a way that we can actually have an impact on them moving forward. I think that if we do that, we're going to find a lot more solutions in the long run than what we're finding today. Continuing to do things like we've always done them, I don't believe is the answer. And I'd like to find out what those other solutions are by breaking the problem down and bringing experts in and listening to what they have to say, and then coming up with ideas and solutions based on that information.
My question regards the Hearst decision. Tyler, I believe you stated that you didn't feel the state legislature was the place to solve this issue, but it should be solved on the county council level. Do you have any specific legislative ideas for local legislation that would satisfy the Supreme Court and provide satisfaction?
Thank you for asking that. So to clarify, if they could fix it at the state, that would be fantastic. I don't know that that will happen in the foreseeable future. It's too divided down there right now. So I think we need to be coming up with alternative solutions. Like I said earlier, I don't think any single solution is going to make everyone happy. But I think an idea that we should strongly consider is the possibility of putting a reservoir on the South Fork. I grew up in Ferndale, and it floods out every spring. Slater Road, the farmlands, downtown, everything. And if it's going to continue to get worse as we see more and more extreme weather in the future, then we need to be finding solutions that will prevent that. And putting a reservoir would help us stop the flooding. It would help us save all of the money that we spend on repairing the flood damage and the loss of our economy based on businesses that aren't able to open or employees that aren't able to go to work. And it would allow us to store that data or store that water and release it during the summer in those low flow months in which the salmon need water. And I think that that would be a possible solution. Perfect? Absolutely not. Is it something that would work in the long run for generations? Yes, I believe it is.
Thank you. I think we have our real last question over here, and then I'm going to finish us up.
This question is for Tyler and Mary Kay. You've indicated that this is an opportunity for us to see how you make decisions and demonstrate leadership. So the piece I've missed, and I'd like an answer from you about, the jail issue is right before us. We have to vote on it. We've heard from people about how they stand. How are you personally going to vote on the jail?
Hot seat.
You know, I don't even tell my husband how I vote on things because it's, you know, and sometimes we agree and sometimes we disagree. I truly believe this is up to the people. I support putting it on the ballot, certainly, and letting the people decide. But at the end of the day, if my husband agree or disagree, and sometimes we have conversations after the fact, we still love and support each other, and we still care about each other. I support putting it on the ballot, period. I support putting it on the ballot.
What came before the county council was whether to put it on the ballot. And I would have voted yes to put it on the ballot because, like I said earlier, I think it comes to all of us to decide. If we're talking, part of your question was how we make decisions. I've gone through as much of this process as I possibly can to inform myself and to listen to as many people as I possibly can. Heather and I sat down and discussed it. I've reached out to Joy, and we've been trying to set up times to discuss it. I've gone to the jail and gotten a tour of the jail from the sheriff. I've gone on ride-alongs with the sheriff's department to see what's going on out there. And I've gone to as many of these events and talked to as many people as I possibly can. I'm split. It's a very difficult issue. And that's why I think it is so incredibly important that all of us are really taking the time to inform ourselves and decide on ourselves. Do I want to answer this as a question and let you know which way I'm going to vote? I don't know the answer to that necessarily myself at this point. I feel like it's another way to place a label on us and to divide us, and I think I would rather have you look at me and look at the process that I work through to make a decision than necessarily the labels that I would fall under.
I'm a 3rd District resident. I live against Sumas Mountain. It's been our home since before statehood, so I I can compete with Barry, and I can compete with you, but we are on a well, and we've seen a lot of houses go in around us. And every year, the stream that runs through this farm now dries up. In the last few years, it's dried up. Every year, we worry about our well. This year, we couldn't water very much at all. We had to drip at night. So I want to know one thing you would put in the land use permitting process on buying property and allowing them to dig a well. What one thing that you would put in that would prevent the new property owner or the owner without water rights from taking the water that me and my neighbors have had for years? Just one thing, each one of you. Thank you.
So I can.
Oh, sorry. Rebecca, you go ahead.
I haven't jumped in first for any of these, so I'll do that. I'll do that now. I think that I talk when I'm out canvassing and ringing doorbells, and people ask me, why shouldn't everybody just have a well if they want one? And I say, well, what if somebody buys the property next to you and puts in the well that they're allowed to have and dries out your well? Well, that isn't fair, is it? I think first in time is first in right, and I don't think that law is going to change. I don't think that we can continue as a county to keep writing blank checks for water. I think we're going to have to make sure that not only is water legally available to the person who wants to put in a well next to you, but they also need to prove that it's physically available. And if it's not, then it's not.
Ma'am, that's a great question. And what I'm going to say is that if someone can come onto a property and buy a property next door to you, and they can put in a well, and their use of that well dries out your well, well, then you probably have a problem already. And it's going to be an issue for you regardless of whether they move it and put in another well. And this brings me back to why we need to be looking at long-term solutions that are bigger than us today, that are going to help us for generations to come. I don't think just limiting growth in the county is that solution. I think we need to have bigger solutions that are going to be solutions for all of us and not just one of us. Because if it's drying out your well based on 2 or 3 more uses from 2 or 3 more neighbors, that's what, maybe 1 or 2 more years before you're out of water anyway? Wouldn't you like to see a solution that actually makes sure or ensures that you have water for as long as you own that property or your family and your children own that property? I think that's what we need to be looking at. And I got a couple seconds left, and I want to go back to Tim's question, I think it was, real quick on the jail, because I forgot to add something. I will stand here and I will tell you that I do support our officers. My grandfather was a sheriff and retired as a sheriff. What they do for us with putting their lives on the line is something that I respect deeply. And I can't give them enough gratitude for that. I want to do what we have to do to make sure that we're not asking more of them than what we already do. And we do need to come up with solutions that are going to continue to support them as they put their lives on the line for us and our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Tyler. Back to water.
Yeah, back to water. So you're right, and it's first in time, first in right. It's Western water law. That's the law. That's the way it is. As far as mitigation, there's going to be some sort of mitigation element, I believe, going forward as far as the Hearst decision is concerned. What exactly that looks like is still to be determined, whether it's from the state standpoint or we work at it as council members, which we'll have to do. In some cases, I had a client some years ago that had a really shallow well, only 12 feet deep. That may be something just from a practicality standpoint with climate change, they're going to have to deal with that. It may have nothing to do with the next door neighbor. It may have to do with the original well and when that was done, however many years ago that was. And to kind of echo on Tyler's thing, just the thing as far as the jail is concerned, one of the things, again, I am also concerned about the officers too, and I've interviewed and talked to the Deputy Sheriff's Guild, and I want to make sure that those officers are protected and they're safe, and actually I've been endorsed by the Deputy Sheriff's Guild as far as this campaign is concerned, and I'm very proud of that.
All right. Final words, Barry.
Well, as a policymaker, I have to give you 2 answers. I'm sorry. But mitigation, I think, is important for people that already have platted plots. But, that's not the long-term strategy. The long-term strategy is having land use decisions that make sense, that protect ag land, that protect the rural character of our county, and that thrive to put the growth into dense areas such as urban areas such as Bellingham and the small cities and some of the landmarks we have throughout the county. We have got to have a commitment to protect our county. That's the long-term solution, is that we don't allow sprawl, that we make sure that we're growing smart. We're not growing in a way that's just, well, let's just put in another well. We can figure out how to mitigate that. That's just not going to work long-term. We have to have a responsible plan that plans for our entire county for, and I agree with Tyler, 100 years, but just coming up with a reservoir or something isn't going to do that. We need to have policies that protect our county and make sure that the density happens where the capacity is.
Thank you. Thank you for each of you for coming today and for being very engaged citizens in our community. We need all of you to make this work, and we really are fortunate. So thank you. Yeah. Okay.
They've only done a preliminary report, but they are doing a much more in-depth report, I believe in October. I think it's just weeks away.